We are living in the wake of Adorno's warnings. What if the very reason we use to liberate ourselves has become the tool of our own domination? We were promised freedom, but what if modern reason is actually a new form of domination? At least Adorno thought so. And it may explain why society feels more anxious, more polarized, more automated than ever.
Enlightenment's promise.
What if enlightenment, the age of reason, didn't deliver freedom, but instead laid the groundwork for fascism, consumerism, and mass conformity? In this episode, we explore Adorno and Horkheimer's famous 1940s work, Dialectic of Enlightenment, which produces powerful and disturbing arguments that modernity's dream of progress has turned into a nightmare. The Enlightenment was supposed to be the triumph of reason over superstition. Thinkers like Descartes, Kant, and Locke championed the idea that we could set ourselves free, politically and intellectually, simply by relying on our reason. If you remember from the previous episode, in which we covered Kant's What is Enlightenment, Kant made the assertion, self reality. Have the courage to use your own understanding. But fast forward to the 20th century, genocide, mechanized warfare, propaganda, and the rise of authoritarian regimes, all under the banner of progress. How did it get to this? Writing in exile during World War II, first in New York and then in Los Angeles, Adorno and Horkheimer ask a simple but devastating question. Why mankind, instead of entering into a truly human condition, is sinking into a new kind of barbarism? Their answer, Enlightenment's reason, set out to liberate us, turned into its opposite. It has become a system of control, domination, and homogeneity. Reason has two faces. One face is supposed to be that of progress, while the other face shows regression. Adorno and Horkheimer and the figures that come before them describe this doubleness, this dualness, as dialectic. The Enlightenment contains the seeds of its own undoing, the domination of nature. The Enlightenment aimed to master nature through calculation and abstraction. But in doing so, it turned everything, animals, ecosystems, even human beings, into objects to be used. They write, what men want to learn from nature is how to use it in order to wholly dominate it and other men. This isn't just a critique of capitalism or fascism. It's a critique of the very reason which was thought to liberate us. Reason, when stripped of its imagination, its ethical claims, and its ability to reflect, becomes instrumental reason, which is logic without meaning. You might even recall Max Weber in his critique of capitalism that there's a distinction between instrumental reason and substantive reason. Instrumental reason has to do with the reason that is concerned with accomplishing a specific task, while substantive reason is always thinking about what ends we set for ourselves and what those means ultimately do for the human being. The culture industry. In one of their most famous chapters on the culture industry, Adorno and Horkheimer turn their sights to pop culture. What used to be called art has become the culture industry, mass-produced entertainment designed to pacify and distract its consumers. The culture industry, they say, perpetually cheats its consumers of what it perpetually promises. Instead of enlightenment, it gives us repetition, the same sitcom formulas, popular music templates, and the superhero blockbuster reboots. Individuality becomes sameness, freedom becomes passive consumption. From myth to reason to myth again. Enlightenment claimed to be the opposite of myth, but Adorno and Horkheimer argue that it ends up creating new myths, like the myth of endless progress, or the idea that more technology always means more freedom. They write, myth is already enlightenment. Enlightenment reverts to mythology. Fascism, in their view, isn't a return to the past. It's a product of modernity's failure. When reason becomes cold calculation, it loses its substantiveness. This opens the door to domination in a new and terrifying form. Why this still matters. Today, we face an updated version of this crisis. We have unlimited access to information, but are drowning in distraction. We've mastered data, but lost wisdom. We can calculate everything, and yet feel more alienated than ever. Adorno's critique is more than historical. It is existential. It challenges us to ask, what does it mean to think for oneself in a world where thinking is shaped by algorithms, conformity, and fear? The project of enlightenment isn't dead, but it is in crisis. Some scholars have read Adorno as someone who was hopeful of the popular irrationalism which took over the end of the 20th century. The contrary is true. Adorno thought that the Enlightenment had not achieved its promise. And if we want to reclaim it, to recover the hope of genuine freedom, we'll need to go back to philosophy, not just to repeat it, but to confront its contradictions. This confrontation of its contradictions of freedom is the central focus of Adorno's late work titled Negative Dialectics. We will cover this text at a later date. We jump into some of those existential questions which plague the 20th century. We'll turn to Martin Heidegger on the question of being and whether there's a way to think outside of the machinery of domination. If you found this thought-provoking, please subscribe, like, and comment below. What do you guys think? Do you think reason can still set us free?